Marcus Chen wiped grease from his hands with a stained rag, squinting at the fusion coupling that had been giving him trouble for the past 3 hours. The Defiant's engine bay was cramped, hot, and filled with the constant hum of overtaxed systems. Around him, the rest of the human fleet drifted in the void between stars, their hulls scarred from months of running battles with the hegemony. "Still can't get proper flow through Junction 7, he muttered to himself, adjusting his headlamp. Marcus had been the Defiant's chief mechanic for 6 years, and before that, he'd fixed atmospheric processors on mining stations. Nothing glamorous. Nothing that would make the history books. The intercom crackled to life. "All department heads to the bridge, priority 1. Marcus glanced at his chronometer. EO 300 ship time. Priority 1 meetings at this hour never brought good news. He grabbed his toolkit, old habits, and made his way through the corridors lined with exhausted refugees and wounded soldiers. The bridge was packed with officers whose faces reflected the same bone-deep weariness Marcus felt. Admiral Reyes stood before the main display, her silver hair pulled back in a regulation bun that couldn't quite hide the stress lines etched around her eyes. "The hegemony found us," she said without preamble. "Long-range sensors show their main battle group dropping out of hyperspace in 4 hours. 300 ships, including their flagship Dominion." A murmur rippled through the assembled officers. The human fleet barely numbered 60 vessels, most of them damaged transports carrying the last survivors of Earth's colonies. "We can't outrun them," continued Commander Torres from navigation. "The civilian ships don't have the engine capacity, and half our military vessels are running on emergency power." "What about the hyperspace inhibitor?" asked Captain Walsh from the Valiant. Admiral Reyes shook her head. "The hegemony's new dampening fields can punch through anything we have. We jump, they follow. We stay, we die." Marcus found himself raising his hand. Every head in the room turned toward him, and he suddenly felt very small among all the gold braid and tactical expertise. "Admiral, with respect," he said, his voice steadier than he felt, "what if we didn't need to outrun them? Explain." Marcus moved toward the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities he'd been considering during his sleepless nights in the engine bay. "The hegemony ships all use standardized fusion matrices, right? Same basic design philosophy they've had for centuries?" "That's correct," said Chief Science Officer Park. "Their technology is highly advanced, but remarkably uniform across their fleet." "Uniform means predictable," Marcus said, warming to his idea. "I've been studying the engine signatures from our encounters. Their fusion bottles all resonate at specific frequencies, has to do with the crystalline matrix they use for containment." Admiral Reyes leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Mechanic Chen?" "We modify our reactor cores to broadcast an inverse harmonic frequency. If we can synchronize it across the entire fleet and boost the signal through our communications array," he paused, running calculations in his head, "we might be able to destabilize their fusion bottles remotely." The bridge fell silent. Commander Torres was the first to speak. That's impossible. The power requirements alone would burn out every system we have." "Not if we reroute everything through the main deflector array," Marcus replied. "We strip power from life support, artificial gravity, even the lights, everything except engines and the harmonic projector. It would only need to work for about 30 seconds. 30 seconds to disable 300 ships? Captain Walsh sounded skeptical. "Not disable," Marcus corrected. "Overload. When those fusion bottles breach, the chain reaction will take out most of their fleet. The survivors will be too busy dealing with rescue operations to chase us." Dr. Park was furiously working on her tablet. The theoretical framework is sound, she said slowly. But Mechanic Chen, if our calculations are off, by even a fraction of a percent, we'll trigger the same overload in our own ships. Marcus nodded grimly. I know, but we're dead if we do nothing. Admiral Reyes studied the tactical display, her expression unreadable. Finally, she turned back to Marcus. How long would you need to implement this? 3 hours to modify the reactor cores and install the harmonic generators. Another 30 minutes to synchronize the fleet. That leaves us 30 minutes before the hegemony arrives. The Admiral's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the weight of decision in her eyes. All right, Mechanic Chen. You have your chance to save us all. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Marcus found himself directing teams of engineers across 60 ships, coordinating modifications that pushed human technology beyond its intended limits. Fusion cores were recalibrated, power conduits rerouted, and harmonic generators improvised from whatever components they could scavenge. With 15 minutes to spare, Marcus ran his final systems check. Every ship in the fleet reported ready, their reactors humming at precise frequencies that would, in theory, create a devastating harmonic cascade across the hegemony formation. Hegemony fleet dropping out of hyperspace, reported the sensor operator. They're forming attack formation. Admiral Reyes looked at Marcus one last time. Are you certain about this? Marcus thought about his years fixing broken machines, his hands dirty with grease and radiation burns, never imagining those same hands might hold the fate of humanity. As certain as I can be, Admiral. All ships implement Mechanic's Gambit on my mark. The Admiral's voice carried across the fleet calm. Marcus activated the harmonic projector. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hegemony formation began to light up like deadly flowers blooming in the void. One by one, their fusion. Cores breached in brilliant flashes that painted space in colors no human eye was meant to see. When the light faded, less than 50 hegemony ships remained, and those were already withdrawing in disorder. Fleet jumps in 10 minutes, Admiral Reyes announced. Well done, everyone. Especially you, Mechanic Chen. As the bridge crew dispersed, Marcus returned to the Defiant's engine bay. There was still that troublesome coupling in Junction 7 to fix. But now, as he picked up his tools, he carried with him the knowledge that sometimes the most important miracles came not from grand strategies or advanced weapons, but from dirty hands and a willingness to try the impossible. The stars waited ahead, and humanity would meet them as they always had, with ingenuity, determination, and the unshakable belief that any problem could be solved with the right tools and enough stubborn courage. Marcus smiled and got back to work.